Once upon a time, everybody loves a good story, and everybody loves a good story in a panel discussion. It can't just be dry. Stories are a way to bring a concept to life. And hopefully you've encouraged your panelists to come prepared with 3 talking points and a story for each. But sometimes they got nothing. My name is Kristin Arnold, and I am a master facilitator and a leading expert in moderating panel discussions. And this happens more frequently than you know, where a panelist doesn't have a story. How can you get them to spill the goods? Find out now. Of course, you are going to prepare your panelists so that they come prepared to tell a story. But sometimes they got nothing. And so you, as the professional that you are going to provide different ways to inspire them to tell a story. In this video, I'm going to give you 3 steps to helping your panelists tell an awesome, concise, short story that will eliminate a point that they're making. Let's dive right in. Sometimes telling a panelist that they need to come prepared to tell a story just isn't enough. So, as a panel moderator, we need to ask a question that prompts, that elicits a story out of our otherwise not to tell a story panelists. Now, my friend Brian Walter, he's the founder of Extreme Meetings. He calls this a story question. And I love the fact that he has actually created a couple of starters that I'm going to share with you. Sometimes telling a panelist to come prepared with a couple of concise stories, well, it just isn't enough. Maybe they didn't read the pre-work. Maybe they didn't hear their homework assignment. Maybe they just kind of blew you off. Maybe the dog ate their homework. I don't know. But they're not prepared. Not prepared. So you, as the panel moderator, need to somehow elicit a story out of them, because stories actually bring a rather dry concept to life. So my friend and colleague, Brian Walter, he's the founder of Extreme Meetings. He's an incredibly gifted panel moderator as well. We were chatting about this, and we both agreed that there's like 3 steps to creating what he calls a story question. So I'm going to share these 3 steps with you. So step 1 is you've framed the problem. What's the problem that the panelist is talking about that the audience needs to get the answer from? They need some kind of clarity. They need some kind of example. So what is it that you want to come out of that story? Step 2 is to reframe that problem or that challenge into some sort of question that will elicit that response. Brian calls this the story question. So, for example, tell us about a time when you, that would elicit a story. Have you ever? Again, you'll hear a story. Can you give us an example about when you? Again, this is a starter that gives us a story. How about this one? When you found yourself in that kind of position or situation, what did you do to get out of that? It elicits a story. So first one is, what's the problem that you're trying to identify and answer for on behalf of the audience? And number 2 is to ask a question that just automatically, the way that you phrase it actually begs a story from the panelist. Step 3 is select a panelist to answer it. Now, you might already be directing that to one panelist, but if you're directing it to all of the panelists, you want to look for those subtle cues where they're leaning forward or they're deep in thought. They go, so, Courtney, you look like you're really thinking about that. Do you have a specific situation in mind? Because those are the juiciest ones. The people who pop off the quickest, oh yeah, I've got one. They might be great, but they might be too surfacey. And those are the people who might always be popping off and answering. You want to make sure that you're balancing the airtime between all of your panelists, that all of your panelists have the opportunity to share a story. So step 3 is you may want to actually select a panelist versus just broadband. So when you ask a story question, there's just no way that a panelist can't answer it with the story. There's just no way. And because they're kind of in the moment, they're kind of unplugged stories, and you've coached your panelists to try to keep their stories concise, hopefully, what happens is that there's a little bit of vulnerability that shows up, a little bit of spontaneity, that unplugged, unplanned, and it's not like they practice the story, so it feels much more organic and human, which is, it's about real life. And that's what your audience wants. They want real life example stories that they can see themselves in it and say, I could be that. I could be experiencing that. I might even be experiencing that. And I can now see how I can get out of that experience. The power of story. I'm just curious. Have you ever seen somebody tell an awesome story in a panel? And I'm not talking spending 8 minutes telling a story. A story can be 15 seconds. It could be 20 seconds, 30 seconds. No story should last more than a minute. Panels just don't have that much time. But if you think about it, a commercial, a really well-crafted television commercial tells a story. It has a beginning, it has a middle, and it has an end. Your stories can too. So I'm just curious, if you've seen anyone, who was it, what was the story, just put some comments below. And while you're there, if you don't mind, if you like this video, that'd be awesome. Even better if you subscribe to this video playlist. That would be awesome. Okay, so let's get to step 4. You thought we were going to be done with 3 steps. Step 4 is after your panelist has spilled the goods, they've shared a story, you have 4 options. Your first option is you can ask a follow-up question. Like, that's an awesome story. Let's go a little deeper in that. You could also emphasize a lesson learned from that story. So what I hear you saying is, and then provide the headline of the lesson. You could ask the same question to another willing panelist, or you could ask a different story question altogether, otherwise known as just transition to another piece. You have options. What are you going to do after that awesome story question? You know, by asking a story question, you really allow the panelists to become more human. It's more transparent. They might use some self-deprecating humor. They might show a little bit vulnerability. And it makes the audience lean in and maybe even remember that story far beyond that panel. My hope is that you got a couple of ideas about how to ask a story question during a panel discussion. And if you want more information about how to moderate a panel, I have a great 7-part free video series that you can access at www.howtomoderateapanel.com. Thanks for watching.